Okay, so we're about to dive into a story that honestly, it almost sounds impossible. It's the story of a nation's incredible rise from the absolute ashes of tragedy to become a potential blueprint for an entire continent's future. This is the story of Rwanda. You've probably heard this phrase when people talk about modern Rwanda, the Singapore of Africa. It's a really powerful and, yeah, pretty controversial nickname. It suggests amazing growth, incredible efficiency. And that comparison, that's really the core of what we're going to unpack. So this is the big question, right? The one that drives everything. I mean, think about it. How does a country get basically erased by the horror of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi and then somehow become a model for the future? It's a staggering transformation, and we're going to break down exactly how it happened. All right, so first things first. To really get what's happening today, we have to go back. We have to look at the ruins, the ashes that modern Rwanda rose from. I mean, the contrast here is just wild. In 1994, the country was a wasteland, the economy gone, infrastructure destroyed, the people traumatized beyond belief. And now, it's one of the fastest growing economies on the entire continent. That journey between those 2 points, well, that is the story. So, how do you even begin to pick up the pieces? How do you find justice when it seems impossible? Look, the normal court system would have taken, centuries to handle all the cases from the genocide. So, Rwanda came up with something totally different, the Gacaca courts. It was basically a form of community justice. And get this, they processed nearly 2 million cases. It was a unique, for sure a controversial, but a pragmatic solution to a problem that was almost unimaginable. And this recovery, it wasn't just about money or court cases. It was a deep, profound social reset. The government did something really radical. They took ethnic labels, Hutu, Tutsi, right off the national ID cards. The whole point was to try and erase the very categories that fueled the hate and forge one single identity. You weren't Hutu or Tutsi anymore. You were just Rwandan. So who's the architect behind all this? That would be President Paul Kagame. And his plan wasn't random. It was driven by a very specific, very deliberate model of governance, a concept known as the developmental state. Now, it's absolutely crucial to get what this means. A developmental state? It's not a hands-off, let the market do its thing kind of approach. No way. Instead, the state itself becomes the main engine of the economy. It controls the key levers with one single-minded goal: fast national development. Okay, so that's the theory. But how does it actually work? Well, Kagame basically runs the government like a super efficient, maybe even ruthless corporation. Ministers get strict targets, KPIs. The civil service is modernized to get things done. And if you don't hit your goals, you're held accountable, publicly. It's a very top-down, results-first kind of system. And you know what? You can't really argue with some of the results. This model has led to some incredible wins on the home front. Universal healthcare coverage, it's at 90%. Primary school enrollment, nearly 100%. I mean, those are just staggering numbers for a country that started from absolute zero just 3 decades ago. Okay, but, and this is a huge but, all this progress comes at a price. A very significant and really heavily debated price. And this brings us right to the core tension of the whole Rwandan story, the big trade-off at the heart of this entire model. So here it is, the Rwandan bargain, laid out plain and simple. On one side, you have the gains, and they are undeniable: incredible stability in a pretty unstable region, high economic growth, and a real sense of national security and order. But the cost? Well, critics will tell you the cost is a closed political space, heavy state surveillance, and a system where dissent just isn't tolerated. Yeah, this quote just nails it, right? It boils the whole thing down to a choice. Do you go for high security and rapid growth? Or do you go for a Western-style liberal democracy with all its focus on individual freedoms and having lots of political parties? Rwanda, well, they've made their choice very, very clear. So what's the big picture here? Is this just Rwanda's story, a one-off thing? Or is it something bigger? Well, it turns out the Rwandan model is starting to move beyond its own borders. It's sparking a whole new conversation across the continent about what development and sovereignty can look like. And this isn't just talk, it's actually happening. The Rwandan blueprint is becoming a real, tangible export. You've got other African nations actively looking at it, trying to adopt parts of it. Benin is bringing in Rwandan advisors to help with their administration. Ethiopia and Tanzania, They're looking at Rwanda's state-led investment model for their own industrial plans. And get this, Rwanda is also projecting power in a totally new way. It's becoming what you might call a security exporter. When insurgents cause chaos in places like Mozambique or the Central African Republic, it's often the highly effective Rwandan troops who step in to stabilize things. This gives them huge diplomatic leverage. Suddenly, Rwanda isn't just a country asking for help, it's a country providing solutions. And all of this, it feeds into this really powerful idea called active agency. Basically, it's about African nations deciding they're done being pawns in some global chess game between, say, the US and China. Instead, it's about them choosing their own partners on their own terms. Maybe it's China for infrastructure, sure. But maybe it's Europe for green energy or Qatar to help build an airline. It's a declaration of strategic autonomy. And what's the end game here, economically speaking? It's about a massive shift. It's about finally breaking away from that old colonial model of just digging raw materials out of the ground and shipping them away. The new vision, which is all tied up in the African Continental Free Trade Area, is for African nations to build, to create, and to trade high-value goods with each other. So we kind of end up right back where we started, with this massive, fundamental question. The Rwandan model, it's powerful. It's effective, no doubt, but it's also deeply controversial. And it forces all of us to ask, to achieve security and prosperity after a complete catastrophe, do you have to choose between development and democracy, or is there another way? That is the question the Singapore of Africa leaves for the rest of the world.